Good afternoon, or still good morning. Feels like afternoon, feels like Friday, actually. But, Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to start by saying I've agreed to take the Chair's suggested amendments in the Judiciary Committee, where the bill will be heard next week, should it pass today. Those amendments are reflected in the mock-up that you have now before you. They increase the employer size threshold to 10 or more employees from 5, and require the employee to have worked for the employer for at least 1 year and for at least 1,250 hours in that year to be eligible for job protection while caring for a new child. 1,250 hours is a little bit, I think, more than half time, but for a period of a year. So I think that addresses concerns that, frankly, I even share as people have demonstrated loyalty to an employer, and this is something that should be, again, made available to employees for job-protected leave while caring for a new child. The later amendment helps to remove the concern that this could be stacked with additional CFRA and FMLA leave, so it addresses that concern as well. So with that, California, sadly, continues to fall behind other states in terms of its job-protected parental leave. The District of Columbia, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, and now New York, which just this past week went far ahead of what we do here in California by providing 12 weeks of paid and protected employee family leave, regardless of the size of the company. So they have indeed moved ahead of us, and significantly ahead of what is now a fairly modest request under SB 1166. Under current state law, only those who work for an employer of 50 or more are eligible for job-protected parental leave in California. That leaves more than 40% of our California workers without any job-protected family leave, and leaves many new parents struggling with an impossible choice between the well-being of their new child and their family's financial security. Experts, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, recommend that healthy full-term infants, healthy, normal full-term infants, should not be enrolled in child care until they are at least 12 weeks old, due to rapid development changes and the risk of quickly developing severe undetected illness. While California workers funded paid family leave program provides employees with partial wage replacement, and this Monday we increased that partial wage replacement for our lowest paid workers to 70% and lesser, or I should say more better paid workers to 60%. Many employees are unable to use this benefit because they fear losing their job. So we've corrected, or we're building on one side of the equation. We now need to build on the other, and that is people who may have that leave available, but it is not job protected, and they choose and make a bad choice, essentially, because they're being forced to choose between their job and taking care of a newborn. And there is data that demonstrates that this has, in fact, and continues to be a great concern. SB 1166 ensures the California workers who have been paying into the paid family leave insurance program are able to use this benefit for parental leave without risk of losing their job. Again, the employer's only responsibility here is if they provide health benefits, the employer must continue those benefits while the employee is on parental leave. They do not have to pay one dime of that worker's salary. The worker, in fact, has paid for that. So the proposed amendments, with the proposed amendments, SB 1166 will extend up to 12 weeks of job-protected leave for new parents if they meet the following requirements. They work for an employer of 10 or more. They have worked for that employer for at least a year and for at least 1,250 hours in that year, which is slightly more, as I mentioned, than half time. And if the employer provides health benefits, they will have to continue providing those. That will be their only financial responsibility during that 12-week period. This measure will help ensure that fewer employees have to choose between the well-being of their new child and their family's financial security. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote. And with me today are Jenna Jerry, attorney for the Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center, and Jania Cassidy, who is the director of California Work and Family Coalition.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Ms. Jerry. Or you're going to go first, Ms. Cassidy?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Jenna Gary, and I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center. We're a nonprofit public interest legal organization that advocates for the employment rights of low-income workers. I'm going to read a little bit of what the senator said, but yes, current law provides workers 12 weeks of job-protected leave to care for a new child, but only if they work for an employer with more than 50 employees. In California, this excludes 41% of the workforce. What this means is that 41% of California workers do not have a single day off when a new child comes into their life. Yet, nearly all private employees in California contribute through payroll deductions to California's paid family leave program, which is entirely employee-funded and provides up to 6 weeks of partial pay to new parents taking time off to bond with a new child. This means that far too often these workers are unable to access the paid family leave benefits that they pay for out of every check because they fear they will lose their job. For example, to give some real life to this problem is I want to share Sabrina Summerfield's story. Sabrina's 3 nephews were left without a caretaker. Their grandfather and little sister had been killed in a car accident, and their mother was no longer able to care for the boys. So Sabrina and her husband decided to adopt the boys, one of whom is autistic. They'd been through a very traumatic experience, and Sabrina felt that she needed to take time off to be with them during this time. She asked if she could take 6 weeks off so that she could receive her paid family leave benefits and help the boys during this very hard time. However, when she asked for this time and she took it, she was fired. Her employer had only 30 employees and was not covered by current law. That means that they were okay to fire her. Allowing workers access to the paid family leave benefits that they pay for is good for workers, employers, and the state alike. It creates stability for working families and communities when workers are able to maintain their employment while bonding with a new child, and decreases the need for unemployment and other state-funded benefits. Moreover, in one survey, over 90% of businesses reported that paid family leave had either a positive effect or no noticeable effect on the business's profitability or performance, and nearly 87% of employers reported that paid family leave had not resulted in any cost increases, and nearly 9% reported cost savings because of reduced turnover and reduced employer-provided paid leave. Indeed, small firms reported even fewer problems than larger firms. In short, SB 1166 would allow workers to access the benefit that they pay for to bond with a new child without fear that they will lose their job, and stop workers from having to make the untenable choice of choosing between their family and their income. For these reasons, respectfully ask for your support for working families in California by voting in favor of this important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gary. Ms. Cassidy.
Thank you. So my name is Jenia Cassidy, and I'm with I direct the California Work and Family Coalition, and we are a statewide alliance of organizations, parents and caregivers who really work to ensure that workers can be there when their families need them most. And for us, this is a really key moment in this work. As you all know, it's a very exciting time nationally around the issue of paid family leave and just the issue of being able to take leave. In New York, one of the most comprehensive laws just passed. Governor Brown just signed AB 908, which, as Senator Jackson was saying, raises the wage replacement. And, for us right now, it's very important that we have equity in our paid leave laws. In the coalition, a lot of the work that we do right now, especially more and more with healthcare workers who really see parents and caregivers, babies having to go to childcare too soon, parents and caregivers not being able to take that time off. We have had so many healthcare workers chiming in on all of these different laws. It's such a key thing. We know so much about brain development now and so much about the early days for children especially. One of the really key things is that parental bonding, both for the health, well-being, but even the brain development of a new infant. Also for, foster and adoptive children, those weeks are very key, as it's just a very difficult time sometimes to be transitioning to a new family. Also, paternity leave. More men, As we all know, millennials are really taking this time off and really assume that this, should be a right. We really need to make it a right so that people who are paying into paid leave don't, not be able to use that benefit. During this time where, we've seen so much excitement with New York, we really want to get to where New York is when it's fully implemented and people have not only the money, but they also have the time to take the leave. A father that's part of the coalition wrote a letter to Labor Secretary Tom Perez in support of the Department of Labor's position on paid family leave and taking leave. And he just had a new baby, Danny Contreras. He has 4 children. He's a drug and alcohol counselor, and he took the time off. And he said that his wife had a C-section. So if I had to go to work in those first weeks, I wouldn't have been able to be there to help my wife as she recovered from her C-section. I would have worried about childcare and my wife's health, and extra stress would have been piling up. I also would have missed those first doctor's appointments and checkups, and I wouldn't have been there to hold my son as he got his first shots. These moments are, rare. Like, you have employees, how many of them are going to be pregnant all at one time having babies? But this is such a key time for our health and well-being. So I urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy. Others who'd like to speak in support of Senator Jackson's bill?
Jasmine Gordon with the California Black Health Network in support.
Good morning, Danielle Kaiser with Common Sense Kids Action. We awarded this bill our star rating. We think it's a great bill, very strong support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Interim Chair. Mariko Yoshihara with the California Employment Lawyers Association, proud to be co-sponsors of this bill. I think it may seem like a radical change for a lot of people, but I think it's because the U.S. is so far behind. California talks about leading on leaves, but the fact that 41% of the workforce does not have job protection, I think, is unacceptable. So we strongly urge your support.
Thank you.
Ryan Ortiz with the ACLU of California in support.
Jessica Stender with Equal Rights Advocates and the Stronger California Advocates Network, which consists of over 30 different organizations working for women's economic security, in strong support.
Thank you.
Katie Joaquin with the California Domestic Workers Coalition in strong support.
Thank you, Ms. Joaquin.
Bethany Renfrey with the State Commission on the Status of Women and Girls in support.
Thank you.
Jeanette Sonic-Patin on behalf of MALDEF in strong support.
Thank you.
Mitch Seaman, California Labor Federation, in strong support.
María Distancia de Mujeres Unidas de Oakland, support.
Hi, my name is Lolita Liedo from the Filipino Workers Center, strong support.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josefina Sebastian, Filipino Workers Center, I strongly support.
Geraldine Stapleton on behalf of the California National Organization for Women in strong support.
Thank you, Ms. Stapleton.
María Reyes, vivo en Hayward, estoy con la coalición estatal y la Alianza Nacional Trabajadoras del Hogar y yo apoyo esta ley.
Thank you.
Raquel Botello, la colectiva de mujeres de San Francisco y apoyo esta ley.
Thank you.
Mi nombre es Carlota y soy de la colectiva de mujeres y apoyo esta ley.
This is Megan Whalen with the California Domestic Workers Coalition, and I support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Whelan.
Blanca Vasquez with the California Domestic Workers Coalition in strong support of this bill.
Thank you.
Darek Santiago de Mujeres Unidas Activas y apoyo esta propuesta.
Alex Rooker, Communication Workers of America, Local 9400, in support.
Thank you, Ms. Rooker. Anybody else here to speak in support of Senator Jackson's bill?
Thank you.
SB 1166. Opposition, please step forward.
Oh, not again.
Time for that interim hearing.
You know, I got a star. Now I got a gold star. Go ahead, tell me you're going to prize me.
Ms. Barrero, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Jennifer Barrera on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce. We are opposed to SB 1166. I haven't had a chance to look at the amendments, but we do appreciate the effort to start addressing some of the concerns that we have raised in our letter, being the minimum qualifications an employee must meet before they're able to take the leave, as well as the size of the employer. While it's moved up to 10 employees, I think it is still a significant impact and a significant burden for those smaller employers to deal with a mandated protected leave of absence. I want to address some of the issues first that were raised by the proponents. I think the claim was made that unless you make this a protected leave of absence, these employees just do not get time off when they've had a child, and I don't think that is an accurate statement because there are a lot of employers who very much value their employees. I think the majority of employers do, and they do accommodate the request for time off. Now, why an employer may give the time off, they may not say, hey, you can take all of the 12 weeks off at one time, because while you are going out on maternity leave, we also have other employees who are out on other listed protected leave of absences here in California. And can we accommodate both schedules by having you maybe come back a day each week and work and have the other person, and they have that conversation with their employees to make sure that they can address the business needs and also the employees' needs as well. When you change this to a mandated protected leave of absence, that eliminates that conversation. There no longer is any consideration with regards to the business need, because once it's mandated in a protected leave of absence, the employee is able to come in and say, hey, we're taking this leave of absence, and there's nothing an employer can do, or they're subject to litigation for denying or interfere with that leave of absence. So I think that's a huge challenge for small employers. While there was a study done of the paid family leave program here in California several years ago, and it certainly praised the success of that program, when they talked about the employers who were impacted, they talked about the smaller employers who had a difficult time implementing these leave of absences, certainly when it was extended. And that was just looking at the six-week leave of absence. This is 12 weeks. So I think there is certainly a struggle for the smaller employers, which is why the threshold is at 50 employees right now. The federal government, the state government, when it enacted the CFRA and FMLA, both considered that a larger employer would be able to accommodate the needs of multiple leave of absences at one time, especially for this long period of time. The other point I wanted to address is that there is no cost to the employer. Because it's an unpaid leave doesn't mean there isn't any cost to the employer. When that employee goes out on leave, they are required to be returned to the same position, or again, the employer is subject to litigation. So when we have an employee out on leave, that work just doesn't get left undone. The work still needs to be done in the business. So either an employee is working overtime, which is going to be a little bit, maybe significantly higher with the new minimum wage law. And then we also maybe have to bring in a temp worker. It's a challenge for an employer to bring in an employee for only 12 weeks at a time when that employee knows they don't have any guarantee of an offered position, and so it's usually at a higher cost if they can even find somebody specialized in the area that they may need it. So there is a cost to the employer. And for those reasons, and again with the litigation aspect as well, I think it's a challenge, and you can't look at this in just isolation to sit there and say that just this leave of absence is what we are considering. California, while it may be not leading the nation on this issue since New York just passed their law, there are a ton of family-related leave of absences that California has here that employers are required to deal with and mitigate, and you could have multiple employees out on those protected leave of absences and then have an employee come in and request a 12-week leave of absence, which puts a huge burden on employers, especially that small of a size as 10 employees. So for those reasons, we are opposed.
Ms. Barrera.
Mr. Chairman and members, Chris McKaylee on behalf of the Civil Justice Association of California, and I just wanted to add to Ms. Barrera's testimony our concerns on the litigation front. Our fear is greater exposure of employers, obviously of a smaller employee size, to significant exposure under FEHA. As I mentioned on Senator Hall's legislation, FEHA provides compensatory damages, injunctive relief, punitive damages, attorney's fees, and so it's a very significant threat, especially to small businesses under this bill. I was interested in November of last year, a major insurance provider, Hiscox, came out with a study as to the impact of employee discrimination litigation. And as it relates to California, they highlighted that in California, and they cited specifically FEHA, that you are 40% more likely have a higher risk of potential discrimination claims in California than the other states around the country. And they found that the average employee discrimination suit costs an employer to defend through settlement or judgment is on average $125,000 per claim. So it's a very, very significant fiscal impact that these FEHA claims can have. And for those reasons, CJAC is opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKaylee. Is there anyone else in opposition? Please step forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Javier Gonzalez with the California Restaurant Association. We have strong opposition to this bill as it will have a significant impact on small businesses, small restaurants, and so it would create a significant burden. So for those reasons and the reasons outlined by Ms. Barrera and the Chamber of Commerce, we are opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Good morning, Nicolina Hernandez on behalf of the Western Car Wash Association, also in opposition.
Thank you.
Morning, Ken DeVore with the National Federation of Independent Business, and I'd like to say that it pains me that our members are opposed to this for the reasons stated. Though I'd like to say I have the utmost respect for you because you have a serious well of compassion where these things come from. So, but we are opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nicole Rice, California Manufacturers and Technology Association. We appreciate the amendment to increase the threshold to 10 employees because 50% of manufacturers in California are 9 employees or less. However, the flexibility issue that was identified before is a huge problem for our industry. Just a quick example, if you've got a process, 4 people working on it, you have somebody out for any length of time, then that process either has to shut down or you have to bring in temporary workers, as Ms. Barrera said, which is very difficult for an industry that already has a workforce challenge. We can't even find the full-time permanent individuals to fill our positions. So for those reasons and others stated, we're opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Rice.
Trudy Hughes with the California League of Food Processors, and I'd like to echo what Ms. Rice just said. The food processors often operate on a seasonal basis, particularly when you're talking about canning tomatoes and peaches and other fruits and vegetables. And having a seasonal workforce definitely complicates things when it comes time for leave. And trying to find temporary workers to fill those positions is very difficult. But again, we do appreciate the need for bonding with your child and whatnot. But unfortunately, I think during times of high season, that's a difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Good morning, Brian Little with the California Farm Bureau Federation in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Any other opposition to Senator Jackson's bill? If not, we'll return to the committee. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Senator Leno. No one can argue with you, Senator Jackson, that you have a wonderful heart, and having bonding with a mother with a new child for 12 weeks is a very noble goal, and I appreciate your efforts. As you know, I come with kind of a business bent. We've got a significant number of small businesses in the state of California that are going to feel the significant impacts of this. We've heard about the flexibility. We're looking at basically an 80% reduction of the federal standard, right, from 50 employees to 10. I'm hoping that through the process that you'll consider raising the number of employees. I know this will have a dramatic effect on my business, where you have 3 pharmacists and you're allowed 2 technicians per pharmacist, so we have 6 technicians, and ours is a very specialized business where if we have an employee that gets pregnant, that takes 12 weeks off, there's just not a pool of pharmacy technicians that specialize in compounding, and so we're going to have to make those 5 workers that are there carry the weight, and when you're paying $20 to $25 an hour for technician, there could be some significant costs, but by all means. I'm also concerned about the litigation aspects of this, the FEHA issues that were brought up in a state that has tremendous litigation in our business environment. And again, I remain concerned about the small business impacts on this, hoping that you'll continue to work with the opposition. I commend you for your support of allowing women to be home with their children, or men to be home with their children, and because I think those bonding in the first 12 weeks is also very important.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Other comments from the committee?
Okay. Well,
I think you're on the right track. I do want to commend you for working with the chair. I think the amendments do improve the bill, and I think we are all seasoned enough to recognize that bills, as they leave their first policy committee, are not often the same bills that, should they be so fortunate to survive 2 houses and get to a governor's desk, look as they do as they leave the first policy committee. So I know that you'll be continuing to work with those who have concerns, and it's mostly focused on smaller businesses and specifics to employers who will feel an impact as a result of this.
So the beauty at this point of not being first is that we can look at other states, which seem to be doing quite well. We can also look at other countries. It is astonishing to me that we ignore the fact that there's a good portion of our workforce that's in their childbearing years. And the fact that we as a country supposedly encourage family values, that people will spend time with their children. The fact that we now know that the most critical time in a child's brain development is in its earliest years, and yet here we are clawing for 12 weeks of paid leave when there are countries around the world who are doing very well financially, who offer their employees anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half of fully paid and protected family leave. So I think that my hope is that we make a statement that while we are very committed to the success of our businesses, we are also very committed to the successes of our families. And this leave, as Senator Stone did note, applies to both mothers and fathers. Because we know that that 12-week period, that initial 12-week period, frankly, is not an easy one. It's been a while for me, but I do have a grandbaby, and I do remember that when they're little, they don't sleep through the night. And you as a parent are up quite frequently dealing with God only knows what that goes on when you have a newborn child, or even children at all. And the amount of sleep that you get, your ability to focus, if you're a new mom, all the changes that are going on when your body realizes that you're no longer eating for two, and other such things. I mean, these are the realities of life, and I appreciate being told that I have a good heart. I plan to tell my daughter that and hope it scores some points, although I don't know. But this is about our values as a society, our values as a state. And I think as much as I mentioned, I have been an employer of up to 13 people. I recognize what it's like. But when someone is pregnant and is going to have start a family or increase a family, as a society, we should support that. And I think especially in here, when we are not adding a burden, a financial burden, as noted, so many people, we have a lot of people out there who are unemployed, who are partially employed. I think there'd be a lot of people who would be interested in these kinds of jobs. And the employer does not have to pay for the time period that the employee is out on leave. I think that's also critically important. We're not doubling the charges. And this isn't the kind of thing where you find everybody out all the time on maternity leave. We just don't have a society that we see 1 or 2, maybe 3 children in a family. So we're not an explosive population. In fact, right now, California is a negative birth rate state. So, but the point is that we want to give families an opportunity. We know that the success of children and of families in general is increased by having that first 12 weeks to bond. That the data is clear on that. So while I'm always willing to work with the chamber to see if we can find something that is mutually beneficial, the notion that this is going to hurt business, it's an old saw, and I believe this is one of their job killer bills. But I think this is a job, particularly in smaller companies, and in many where, the initial thing was 5 employees, so we've increased it to 10. But in small businesses, the proprietor knows his or her employees, their family. And to be able to extend this reinforcement of support to one's employees, frankly, makes better employees. They feel more at home, they feel more appreciated, more respected, and they tend to be better performing employees as a result. So I think this can be a very short-sighted no. And it's my hope that we'll continue to work. I think by taking these amendments, it's a very fair bill. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote.
I'll take that as your very compelling close. And I'm pleased to move the bill. So we will call the roll.
The motion is due pass to judiciary. Mendoza? Stone?
No.
Stone, no. Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Mitchell?
We will place that bill on call. Thank you, Senator Jackson. So we're down to our last 2 authors. Senator Stone, it looks like you're up. That would be item number 7, SB 1344.